Good evening, folks. I'm Mark Tarpley, the South Carolina Section Manager N4UFP, and some of you who may be listening, I've probably met you at some point or another. What we are doing tonight is what we hope will be the first of many live stream events that really will have a town hall format. This is a chance for us to connect with folks in the South Carolina section and find out what you're thinking and find out what we need to do to serve you better. Our plan is, if this goes off reasonably well, we'll try to do it quarterly, and it allows us ultimately to do a better job of what we do, which is successfully lead the field service organization and make sure that we are serving all 10,000 amateurs who live in the state of South Carolina. That having been said, nothing ever happens that a group of people get together and do it. So let me introduce some other folks I have with me this evening. N2COP, Bill Marine. Some of you may have had the opportunity to meet him. He is the Roanoke Division Vice Director, lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. He's joining us tonight. Also, my technical coordinator, Brad Humphreys, AE4VJ, in beautiful York, South Carolina. And finally, last but not least, Section Emergency Coordinator, Billy Irwin, K9OH. And who knows, we may have some other people show up as well. I sent out an invitation to the incoming Roanoke Division Director, Dr. Jim Boner, N2ZZ, in Aiken, South Carolina. He had some other things this evening, but he said if he had a chance, he'd join us. All right, let's see what we have, Brad.
All right, let's see. We got some 4 comments. I think pretty much just some people saying hello. We have John Gendron. Always, he's always supports us. Really appreciate that. Thanks, John. We got Dan G, and looks like Jeff Keith, Jeff Blythe, and everybody watching on the YouTube. So we got some people in. What is the total viewers is 19. So we got people watching. It's better than the last one.
Indeed, it is. So we've got comments. Any questions yet? Anything in particular people want to talk about this evening?
Doesn't look like any questions yet. I didn't get any in the email asking for any, if anybody want to talk anything so we can prep for it. So we're just going to go with it.
Well, that means either we're doing a pretty good job and people aren't too worried, or we have so completely befuddled and bumfuzzled everybody, they don't even know where to begin asking questions.
Well, what we are doing a job. We don't know if it's good or bad, but we're doing something.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're trying to find out in a sense. Try to find out if we're doing things well or badly. And the funny thing is, if you're doing things badly, people will often tell you, and that's actually very valuable. Failure is a powerful teacher. And some of the most important lessons we learn in life are the result of things that we have not done as well as we would have hoped. So we'll see what people come back with. I've spent the last 3 weeks learning what ham radio is like when you have 100 watts in a wire.
But I think that's a podcast, isn't it?
It is a podcast, actually. But I've actually gotten to live that now that we're not down here permanently, but we've moved down to the rental property for a month. There's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know which one wants to take that one, but
we'll
come in guns a-blazing. Let's get it on.
I will make a couple of comments, and then Bill, would you like to weigh in on that as well?
I'll take the football after you.
Okay. Well, John, that's a very good question. And Bill has a lot more details than I do. He works at a much higher level. I'm just the local guy. I think that the board has been trying to find its way on that. I don't think they were happy with what we wound up with the first time around. And I think they're still trying to figure out exactly what our next run at this is going to look like. And let me just turn it over to Bill, and he'll share all the details. Bill, take it away.
Okay. All right. Oh, I got the football, Mark. Thanks. I'm going to run now with it. John, thanks for that question. And a brief recap was that a new slate of directors were elected in 2018. One of those was a attorney specializing in real estate and particularly the use of antennas. Fred Hopengarten, K1VR, Kilo 1 Victor Romeo, the then newly elected New England director. Fred is also the author of a book published by ARRL called Antenna Zoning. And he's been doing this for many years, including a law practice that specializes in helping amateur radio operators to have antennas installed at their QTHs. It was Fred's contention that the original version of the Amateur Radio Parity Act was not strong enough in permitting amateurs to have leverage in discussing with HOAs, homeowners associations, about the ability to put up antennas. Fred made a very impassioned presentation to the board directors in January of 2018, saying that the legislation need to be strengthened. ARRL and the board voted to pull the original version of the Parity Act and to revise the language so that it would be more favorable for amateur radio operators. In the time that that new language is being drafted, we had, of course, the pandemic. We had an election. And so right now, the league is looking for sponsors in the Senate and in the House to reintroduce the Parity Act. It will no longer be called the Parity Act. It will be the Amateur Radio Emergency, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the last term. It's not parity, it's something act, and it will, without tipping the hand, if the language gets introduced that we're hoping it will come up with some template-like antennas that could be acceptable to HOAs, as opposed to just a customized one-off every encounter. A ham could go and to approach an HOA with a standardized set, like standardized verticals, standardized wire antennas, and say that these are within the scope of the law if it passes as is. Last I heard from ARRL's LAC, Legislative Advocacy Committee, that they're hoping the next session of Congress that will start in January, that there will be sponsors that will introduce the new act. And that's the latest that I have.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That's a very concise summary of where we are. And hopefully next year in 2022, we'll begin to see it work its way through that legislative meat grinder known as the U.S. Congress. We'll see how that goes. My experience working with the South Carolina General Assembly is that no matter what you start with, whatever comes out at the other end is always different. As soon as legislators get a hold of something, it seems to take on a life of its own. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited about that. What else have we got, Brad?
With another follow-up with John, he wanted to know about when the FCC fees for testing are going to go into effect.
Bill, you want to?
I'm glad Bill's here. We got a lot of heavy-hitting questions. Right,
no,
this is great.
I've given up trying to read the tea leaves with the FCC. I can't figure out when they're finally going to do that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm going to catch that political football again, and let's start blocking. You know, just like Gamecocks or Clemson. Let's start moving down the field. John, the answer is there is no set date now. And part of it is that the FCC, and a recap on this about the fees were not levied by the FCC exclusively against amateur radio. All entities, two-way radio, GMRS, any type of marine radios, any type of two-way radio where a license had to be held. The Ray Baum Act, that was the name of a congressman, I believe from Wisconsin. The Ray Baum Act said that the FCC had to collect fees to offset the cost of administration for licensing, and there was no amateur radio exemption. So all services that apply for licenses are affected. So the first thing that's important is that amateur radio was not singled out in this. Yes, the ARRL did file asking for an exemption, and the FCC came back, which in my opinion was a rather chilling reply, that the ARRL said, based on the fact that amateur radio operators provide emergency communications, that should be sufficient to waive fees on behalf of the public. The FCC came back and said, we acknowledge that amateur radio operators do provide emergency communications. However, amateur radio operators are volunteers, and as volunteers, they're not always dependable in delivering that service when required. And because they're volunteer and not dedicated full-time emergency responders, we at the FCC do not see the exemption as being worthwhile. What has thrown everything into a tizzy on this is that the FCC does not have the budget to alter its computers to accept the fee. And so we're all in a bit of a freebie right now. And where there's no announcement that has been made, the latest projection, John, is that it will probably be late first quarter or early second quarter 2022 when the FCC computers are finally going to get reprogrammed to accept the fee.
They got to get off the Commodores.
There you go, government in action. Congress probably should have appropriated some additional funds for the FCC so they could have done the upgrades to their administrative computing systems. Yeah, we want you to collect a fee, but we're not going to give you any resources to figure out how to do that. That is government in action right there.
So we got another question from Jeff Keith. It's pretty good about post-pandemic, and he plans to stop doing remote testing. I kind of like the remote testing. In this day and age, shouldn't we kind of be doing more of that?
I look at remote testing a lot like remote work. I don't think remote work is going to go away when the pandemic finally ends, whatever that looks like. I think some people will still work remotely. And I think there are powerful advantages to a well thought out remote testing procedure. Think of a state like Alaska. South Carolina is a pretty compact state. You can drive from one side to the other in about 4 hours. I don't know, in Alaska, that takes you 6 months. It's a huge state, very thinly populated. Remote testing makes sense there. And if you look at some of the big sparsely populated states out west, I think remote testing is a good thing for us. It could really help increase our numbers. You want the test to be a challenge. You want to find out what people know about amateur radio and about the technology, but you don't want the process of getting the test to be too much of a challenge. That's not where the
actually. I got a comment on that too, Mark.
Go ahead, Billy.
I hope that that in doing the remote, that the folks with visual impairments that choose to take the test, I hope that there's still accommodations made for that and considerations of that. So
I actually think it would probably be easier to do that with remote or electronic testing than it is right now.
You would think it depends on what platform they use as to whether it's compliant. And that can be a very deep discussion. You know more about
that than us, so I'm glad you're here for that.
So just want to throw it out there.
That's a good point. Anything that folks do in the sphere of remote testing needs to be ADA compliant. Absolutely. Yeah. In order to reach all kinds of folks who might be interested in having a ham radio license. And John just weighed in. They're getting ready to start remote testing at the York County Amateur Radio Society. Yeah, I think it's something that's going to stay with us. I think people are finding it very convenient, and I suspect that clubs that are doing testing will continue to do it. Maybe not as much of it, but I don't see it going away.
Not after you let them start doing it. How do you turn it off? You can't.
Tough to put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah. And it looks like John also, Billy, to answer kind of your question, said they have a plan for visually impaired folks for the testing as well.
Very good. If they need a guinea pig, oink oink.
There you go. John also had a question for Billy. Billy, the status of the Aries Oxcom workbook for South Carolina.
Okay, Billy, you're on your own on this one. This is right up your alley.
Well, there's not been a ton of progress. I haven't received a set of meetings out of the state executive interoperability committee. I was unable to make the meeting, but I know that we have lost our statewide interoperability coordinator. He's retiring at the end of this month, and we have not heard who the replacement is. So I know that there's still movement happening, and I don't think they're going to let it die by any chance, but I don't think any hard and fast rules have been really set yet.
Okay. Well, nothing can move faster than the speed of bureaucracy. It's like the speed of light limitation in physics. You know, for government, it's the speed of bureaucracy. Nothing goes any faster than that. So hopefully we can push that along. What else have we got?
Some more stuff about the testing. So it's like, John, really what they're doing short term anyway is they're reading the questions to the testee. So,
Okay.
I mean, sometimes the simplest solutions are pretty darn elegant.
Well, you know, people sometimes
it worked for me.
Sometimes people overlook the obvious. And they really do. They forget that it's like the old story about NASA. As part of the Apollo program, they had a contract out to design a pen that would function in a zero-G environment. And they spent $2 million trying to make this pen. And then somebody finally pointed out that the cosmonauts use pencils and it works just fine.
I have later heard that is all a big myth. That isn't really how it happened, but it's still.
It is. It probably. I'll stipulate, Counselor, that it isn't true. I don't know, but the point is, the story illustrates how you can get caught up in technology when sometimes there's a very simple solution. In the case of writing in zero gravity, don't worry about the pen. Just hand somebody a pencil.
Yeah. Everything it doesn't always have to be sexy. It's just got to be functional.
Yes, functional is good. Now, if some of the folks who build amateur radio equipment could understand the importance of function, you know, who knows?
Why Tentec isn't in business anymore?
Ouch.
Dang.
Oh.
Sorry. They knew how to make an ugly radio.
Okay, they did have the market cornered on that. That was their gift.
And I thought the TS2000 was kind of an ugly radio.
You know, it kind of was. The thing was the way the buttons were laid out. I mean, once you got that muscle memory, I mean, it was pretty easy to navigate. You could do it blindfolded from what people told me.
Oh, I did it blind. So, I mean, that qualifies.
And wasn't that one of the first radios to have backlit buttons on the front?
Might have been.
Yeah. What a great idea. Because we all sit around in the dark, right? Because we're weird like that. I don't know.
Well, I see John decided to throw a contrarian opinion in there. Pencils are flammable. Technically, no. Pencils are combustible, and it has to do with the flash point of the materials pencils are made from. In a high oxygen environment, that question got settled in 1967, sadly, permanently. And the space program moved away from pure oxygen environments after the Apollo 1 tragedy. But what that also illustrates is that every success carries the seeds of a future failure. You solve one problem, it'll lead you to another one.
Always does.
Good evening, Roger. I see we have a comment there. Says the Oxcom looks like their textbook. Gosh, try saying that fast. Textbook has been approved. Well, that's good if they're going to issue it early 2022. That's just around the corner. Any comment on that, Billy?
No, I think that's great. That's good.
Thanks for sharing that, Roger. Glad you're with us this evening.
All right. Well, we've had some really good questions. We're only 20 minutes in, so that's good.
Well, if we make it to half an hour, then it doesn't suck.
I don't know. Maybe for the next one, we start adding, if we get this many viewers, we'll do something crazy. I don't know. Or every time we say ARRL, we have to everybody has to take a shot. It could be fun.
That could end badly.
It could.
Just saying. Speaking
Y'all
of
could watch
things,
me drive a car down 85.
Well, you wouldn't be any different anybody else driving on 85.
well, you might do better, Billy, because you're more self-aware of your situation than some of those folks on I-85.
Yeah, they can't admit they've got a problem.
Billy, you want to start on this one?
You'll have to read it.
This is from Bogan. Are there any plans or goals for Aries in 2022?
Sure. That's a really good question. One of the biggest goals that we have right now is getting the database back up and running. I'm putting a lot of effort into that, and it's a very complex setup to get off the ground. So that's one of the biggest goals that we've got going on. The second goal is to strengthen our leadership and work through communications challenges that have risen due to the pandemic, and just really continue to encourage others to volunteer. And there's other goals that I'd like to say are kind of continuing goals. We continue to exercise and continue to practice, but also really, stress that this is a hobby and try to make these things fun and enjoyable so that we can keep the volunteers informed and engaged into what's going on. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I think the engagement piece is important. And yes, one of the things that people sometimes lose perspective of is that this is a hobby. Thanks for bringing that into the conversation. Have we been able to set a deadline for that database, Billy? We really need to stick a pin in the calendar so we've got something to work to. Have you been able to?
Originally, I was hoping for January 1, but some technical difficulties kind of stepped in the way of that a little bit. And I'm working with open source software that is not 100% designed to do what we need to do. We have in the Aries field organization component, the way that our organization is set up, it is very difficult to get software to conform to the way that we operate. And I think that was one reason that Aries Connect had so many difficulties as it was. So it's a very technical configuration. We can do a flat database in the system, but giving the users control of their contact info presents some unique permissionings. And I want to get us at least back to where we were before Aries Connect. And so that's kind of where we are. And hopefully another couple of months, maybe no later than March, we'll be to the point where everybody can log in and work with their data. But don't be surprised the next couple of weeks that users do see emails and things coming out about the progress of where we are.
Okay.
And I would also add, I'm the only one right now that is working on the back end of the database. we have not yet found anybody that has the PHP programming knowledge to help with that. So I'm having to do this as time permits with other, areas, duties, and keeping up with everything else. So I'm working, as fast as we possibly can through it. So.
Well, you and I will talk later. We need to pick a date. We need to plant a pin in the calendar and say, this is when we're going to get finished. Then we need to work to that. And the way we'll set that date is decide what we need to do to get finished, figure out how long it's going to take, work backwards from there. Got another question from Roger. Roger, if I want to send out an email to the entire cohort of league members in South Carolina, I have to do it through headquarters. And yes, that email was actually sent yesterday. And because at the time I wrote it, tomorrow was today. It was Monday. And I should have been more careful. I should have just left it December 6th. But writing is often a stream of consciousness thing. So the word tomorrow crept in there. And if I proofread it after I wrote it, I probably would have said, no, I can't put it in tomorrow because I can't depend on the league people to approve it on a timely basis. But they did approve it, and it finally went out today. Yes, it was drafted yesterday. What else can I tell you about that?
Well, it did go out on all the social media platforms when it was created last week. So,
okay.
And that's mostly where we're getting information to the masses the fastest. When you send an email through the league system, it's all boils it down to plain text. And some things are really not pretty to look at, and some are even just downright hard to read. Like when you do your section reports, you get down to the numbers. I don't know how you ever get it formatted anywhere close.
Yeah, experience. You just figure out what works and what doesn't, and where to put in the extra spaces. It's
if we just knew some people that might be able to do something about that.
But yes, actually, Roger, there were other notifications that went out. And Brad, you don't have to worry about anybody being too excited about this. One of the things I have going in the background is the comments, the feed from Swamp Fox Contest Group, and at least one of their members got pretty bored after, what did he say, 23 minutes yawn, he's gone, I guess. So,
well, I must have missed that one.
Well.
Oh well. Billy, here you go. Jeff Keith says used to be a computer programmer, C# Node.js. So be willing to help if you needed some PHP. He's got some PHP, but not an expert, so he might be able to help you out.
We would greatly appreciate that. Send me an email. K908@ARRL.net or billy.irwin@outlook.
What was that first one? K9OH@ARRL.net?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you stepping up to volunteer some of your time, and I'm sure Billy will be able to use the help. Anything else, Brad?
That's it for the moment. Hopefully there'll be a couple more rolling in. So what's the plan for the winter? You guys getting on the low bands? I mean, Mark, I know you are. That kind of your forte.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to get back on 630 meters.
That's low.
No, that's insanity. Everybody needs a 500-foot antenna in their backyard. That's insanity.
I agree with that. And I tried to, when I was a kid, try to tell my mom that. She wouldn't go for it.
Yeah, I get it. The only reason my wife goes for it is she's a ham too. And
that definitely helps.
Yeah. Plus, she's also learned that by allowing me to pursue some of these absurd interests, it, keeps me out of trouble off the streets and, fills my day now that I'm retired. She just doesn't have to worry about me.
That's right. There's a lot worse and more dangerous hobbies one could be in other than this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to hang glide. I think that one, there might have been a higher risk factor associated with that.
Almost as bad as base jumping. But I guess base jumping, that wasn't a thing back when you were younger, was it?
No, that level of crazy hadn't been achieved yet.
I do have a question.
Yes,
Uh-oh.
sir.
Yes, Bill.
My question is, last I heard, and I want to confirm this, is the Charleston Ham Fest still on for Saturday, February 5th, 2022?
Well, I can give you an answer to that, I think. I've been watching their website for information. In fact, this week I'm starting to write my last report for the year, and I checked again. There is absolutely no information anywhere on their website about a ham fest at any time in 2022. So the conclusion I draw from that is no, there is not going to be a ham fest in Charleston on the first Saturday in February 2022.
And I will tell you from my perspective at the regional level, the first Saturday in February was also the same day traditionally that Frost Fest, which in Richmond, Virginia, was also held. And people have been contacting me saying, if Frost Fest is canceled, which it is for February 5th, 2022, should we all stream into Charleston, South Carolina for the Charleston Ham Fest?
Unless they're trying to keep the ham fest a secret, which I highly doubt, I would say there is no ham fest. There's nothing on their website. I mean, I looked under the ham fest link, and there were photos of the last ham fest they had, which would have been February of 2020. It was the last I was there. I actually saw my bald head in a couple of the pictures.
Yeah, I was there with you. It was the last in-person ham fest until Shelby this past Labor Day.
Aha. Thank you, Thomas, for the update. They don't have a location. Ooh. Yeah, that's a challenge right there. Well, hopefully they'll be able to find something. And if they can't do it,
Won't they just do it on the Yorktown? That'd be a hell of a ham fest location.
well, but he says the alternative sites are too expensive, and I imagine if you wanted to do it on the Yorktown, you're going to have to pay somebody for something. That doesn't happen for free.
Yeah.
And then I think about access, ingress and egress for the vendors with all their stuff. That it sounds like an awesome venue until you start thinking about the logistics and the details. And maybe not.
Well, then the recommendation I would do is if they're not going to have one, that's just more reason just to go to Orlando the next week. It's going to be warmer.
Yeah. I think this is something that happens to. Margie, good question. The election results are in, and our former Roanoke Division Director, James Boner, will be returning in January. So N2ZZ was able to hold off the incumbent, W2RU, Bud Hipsley, and a challenger, Marv Hoffman, the North Carolina section manager, and he will be returning as Roanoke Division Director in January.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
I was going to have a little fun with Margie and just say that Hiram Percy Maxim had been elected. So.
She's going to come after you if you do stuff like that, Bill.
I wouldn't want to make that woman mad. All right, so it looks like Bill Turner says the Charlotte Ham Fest still on for the second weekend in March. So we got that coming up.
See that. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Agreed. And that is going to be an important ham fest because the Raleigh Ham Fest is canceled as of now.
Okay, so that's good news for the folks in that Charlotte Ham Fest. They should pick up some attendance. That'll be good.
Yeah, that's really good. And talking about Raleigh's a good ham fest too. If they get back to it, and anybody hadn't been to it, you might want to check that one out.
In fairness, there's a movement afoot to revive the Raleigh Ham Fest for 2022, and I don't know the status of that. But the going into last week, it was canceled as of then. And as John has chimed in there, the Raleigh Ham Fest was looking at an alternate site because there were some restrictions with the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, where it is traditionally held. And so it may yet happen, but it may happen at a different venue.
Yeah, and then Margie says she was not impressed by your comment. I wish we got a rise.
Oh, Margie, lighten up, would you?
So we got a big one from Philip here. Oh my God.
Well, Brad, maybe it's time for us to do some more videos.
You know, I guess we're gonna have to get into the VHF UHF digital modes. It looks like, and hotspots. I don't know. Programming a DMR radio. I don't know if I can do a video on that. I mean, the guys over at Bridgecom, they have a lot of videos for that stuff, and they're pretty boring too. So I
Well, it's good to know that we don't have a lock on boring. I'm glad.
no,
that
but the things we do try to be entertaining, or add some flash or something, to keep you engaged. Some of this stuff is just it's really hard, and sometimes coming up with stuff is just you come up with a mental block. I know I have a friend that has the TYT DMR radio, and not very friendly. I have an Anytone, and that's actually hasn't been that bad. The software with it actually kind of makes sense. Once you watch their videos, they tell you how to do it. It's not.
I will tell you the Radioddity for a cheap DMR dual band radio, I can do it all from the keypad visually impaired. And you just type in the frequency and the color code. It's probably the easiest radio. It's not really built around the commercial aspect, so it's bare bones. Do what you need to do to be able to take advantage of DMR.
Well, and the Anytone, you can do just about all of it from the keypad. I don't know why anybody would want to, because I mean, you end up having to go to the same place about 3 different times to get it programmed, and then you'll get these talk groups, and people will give you the talk group name, but finding the actual talk group number, unless you're on Brandmeister, where it's a real good database, but I know like PRN around here, finding the actual talk group number, it's just not out there. And there's not really any communication on their Facebook group, and not a lot of info. There is some info and enough info to get you started on their website, but some of the stuff I've found, code plugs, stuff's just wrong, like bad wrong. Yeah. So, I mean, I started with one and then I just blew it out because it was just too much stuff. And it's not as simple as pulling it down from a database that you would for your analog radio. And, like who's the RT Systems will pull it from those databases, and you put it in there and hit the button and go, and you're in business. It is not like that at all. You actually got to enter this stuff in by yourself. I found there's other software out there, but all of it, most of it, especially for the manufacturers, all Chinese based. So it's all written in Chinese, translated to English, and then translated back into Chinese to make sure that guy didn't screw it up. So then some of it just doesn't make sense. But
it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
It is not. D-Star is so much easier. And I would imagine Fusion and C4FM Yezu's deal is a lot easier to do also. Now, DMR is kind of cool. Yeah, you can have 2 signals on at the same time, but
I've also found, although that's not really made it completely to the ham space, but I run my 2-meter repeater in mix mode, so I can do next edge, and next edge is pretty simple, and not the trunked mode, but the analog next edge is super simple.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
And all that, I mean, that could be a whole nother deal.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Lloyd's
Well,
asking me if I was making the trek to Orlando. I think I saw in there John and Darcy will be going. I'm not sure who all else. Yeah, I'm planning on going. I haven't bought tickets yet. I'll wait till after first of the year before I book all that trip. Finding a hotel room that time of year is not really that hard. So we'll see how numbers are. But that is a real good AmFest, and I've always used it as an excuse to go south in February. I've tried to get Mark to go many times. He just wouldn't do it. But now he's retired, so he doesn't have this excuse anymore.
I'm busier now than when I worked.
I know. You need a job so you get some rest.
One of the things I want to go back to Phil Chandler's comment.
Yep.
Really, I think the point Phil's trying to make is he's looking for some training. So that's probably something we can talk about in a different venue.
What part
Brad.
of the state is he located in?
He's in Rock Hill.
Philip, he's located in my little piece of paradise up in Rock Hill.
If he's willing to drive to Florence,
So,
they have DMR training down there on a somewhat regular basis.
I wonder if we could get those guys to kind of meet somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, maybe get those guys to come to Rock Hill.
Yeah, talk to the DEC down there, Donald Bryant, KB4R.
Donald Bryant. Okay, all right. Let me make a note. I don't know Donnie too well, but I've talked to him a time or two.
Yeah, he. I don't know if they've done any videos, and they would be even willing to do it virtually. I don't, I think anything's on the table. But they've done
I wouldn't mind helping them do a video.
Yeah, I would definitely reach out to him, and I talk to him on a somewhat regular basis. So if I talk to him in a day or two, I will make him at least aware that y'all are looking to reach out to him.
Cool. Yeah, John just kind of said, yeah, the TYTs are hard. And what antenna is the ARRL selling for field day?
Oh,
What did I miss?
The NFED.
Why is that such a hot button antenna all of a sudden? I mean, the posts online, there's tons of that stuff just for NFEDs, people making their own balance for it. I don't know. You know how I feel. If you want a good field day antenna, build you a ZF6 BKW and go.
Yep. That's what I'm using down here right now. That's it. It gets the job done. I look at this and I'm not sure that the league necessarily sees doing that as competition with their advertisers. I think that the staff viewed it more as something they were doing to help support field day. I think that's how they looked at it. Here's a simple antenna. If you want something to get out in the air and enjoy field day, here it is. NFED antenna, easy to put up. I don't think the intent was to compete with anybody, and I don't know that there are that many vendors making that NFED antenna. I've got one that I bought years ago, and I've used it once or twice, but I don't run into them very often. And what's interesting is I don't know that the folks who advertise necessarily view it as competition. I suspect they saw it more as a service that the league was providing to its members, trying to help people get out and get something done on field day.
One, I get some people just don't want to build an antenna. They just want to go buy it. Some people want to do it.
Yeah, I get that too. Sometimes you'll get the cost of building something, and it's easier just to buy it. I had that discussion with my son-in-law. So my wife's sister and her husband are with us here at the beach, and they're in their hands, both of them. brother-in-law is KD8DCQ and his wife is KD8JOT. Of course, my wife's a ham, W7LEE. And we got on the subject of potato guns for launching antennas. And my son-in-law got into this thing. Oh, we should build a potato gun. That'd be great. And he said, how come you haven't built a potato gun for putting antennas up? And I looked at him and I said, it's simple. If you add up the cost of the materials, you can go out and buy one for less than it costs to build it. And, you know, if I need one, I'll just go out and buy one. I mean, there's some satisfaction to constructing something yourself, but that satisfaction has to get weighed against how much more did it cost me to do it. And Jeff,
the time.
At the time, yes. Jeff's asking, what was the antenna that someone mentioned? It's an antenna that Brad and I have built a number of, and they work very well. It's the ZS6 BKW. That's Zulu Sierra 6 Bravo Kilo Whiskey. And it is an antenna that looks something like a G5RV. It has a radiating section, a flat top that's depends a little bit on the kind of wire you use, but with sort of the standard number 14 stranded insulated wire you could find at the orange place or the blue place. It's about 93 feet, 10 and a half, call it 93 feet 11 end to end, and you feed it in the middle. There is a series matching section that is there. The antenna itself is split in the middle, connected to approximately 39 feet 3 inches of ladder line, 400 to 450 ohms. And at the other end of the ladder line, you connect 50 ohm coax. And what you wind up with is an antenna that will normally cover probably the bottom 150 to 200 kilohertz of 40 meters, all of 20 meters, all of 17 meters, all of 12 meters, and probably about half, the upper half of the 10 meter band. And the lower half of 10 is easily matched with any manual matchbox or auto tuner that you have in an HF rig. Doesn't work. It's very difficult to match on 30 and 15 meters. I will say that. The other thing that often happens is you will have a additional, it's not really a resonance. The SWR will drop to around 2 to 1 near the bottom of 80 meters, which is neat if you want to run FT8 on 80 meters. It has a moderately low, say, SWR of 2 to 1, somewhere around 3550, 3570. Bill raises a good point. One of the advantages of end-fed antennas, everything's a trade-off in the antenna world. They're easy to set up and easy to hide. If you happen to be in a neighborhood where there is an HOA and the only outdoor antennas are OTARDs, an end-fed antenna with some wire that's camouflaged in trees, it's pretty hard to find. Easy to set up, easy to take down. I've got an end-fed antenna. I've used it from time to time, and it's like everything else. The advantages are that it's end-fed. It's easy to set up. Some of them have a relative, especially the longer ones, will have a good match from 80 meters right on up through 6 meters. So it's easy to match. It's easy to get on the air with. Doesn't necessarily have a ton of gain. I mean, it's not like having a tower and a beam, but it gets you on the air and you get to make contacts. And especially with some of the modern digital modes, you can make a lot of contacts. The ZS6B KW, I'm just a fan because it's easy and cheap to build, and it will generally do a good job. End-fed antennas sometimes you have no choice, but they can wind up costing you a little bit more. And Philip comments, he built one and works great, and he needs to get it higher. Yeah, that's the ongoing thing with antennas. No matter how high it is, it needs to be higher.
I love it when they ask, how high does it need to be? Higher.
Yeah.
Higher.
Figure out how high you can make it, and then decide how you're going to do even better.
Well, look who wandered in here.
Who wandered in?
I'm going to show you here. Let's look at that.
Gordo. All right.
Howdy.
All right, folks. We have a special double Gonzo Kabluna Hour mystery guest. Gordon Mooneyhan, W4EGM, the section public information coordinator. Gordon, got any words of wisdom for us?
Just to follow up on the Charleston Ham Fest.
Great.
I was at one of their meetings, October, I think, and they're looking for a new location. City of North Charleston passed an ordinance that short form, you have to have a permit for a yard sale. It's $65, and the Hamfest falls under that category, and every vendor has to have a permit. They just can't get one blanket permit. So they were looking for a place outside of North Charleston, and I haven't heard anything else since.
Okay. Well, that dovetails nicely with comments we got from someone who was down in Charleston, said they were looking for a venue, and he expanded a little bit on some of the challenges involved. I think that was it Thomas, AJ4UQ. So, and that is, I mean, having been vice chair of the Rock Hill Ham Fest for 7 or 8 years with Bob Bacharach, WA2EMF, finding a venue was a challenge. We were at the baseball stadium for a while. We wound up at the college for 1 year. We used the American Legion Hall for a while, and eventually the Hamfest wound up they're at a Baptist church now, actually outside of Rock Hill, west on the way to York. And they've outgrown that. I noticed John Gendron a few minutes ago posted they were looking for another venue. I'm not surprised. They had good attendance last year, and it's the kind of problem you want to have. You want to be a victim of your own success. And they have done a good job of promoting it and are really ready to go to the next step. They got to find a bigger venue, and that's always a challenge. A lot of folks are rethinking things from a risk mitigation perspective. Do we really want these people on our site and we're not collecting any money? And what happens if something happens? Somebody gets hurt. Somebody does something that's newsworthy in a negative way, and we catch somebody catches some bad PR for it. It's amazing. What's actually amazing when you have a venue and you rent it, all the different things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
The college I used to work for had an on-campus conference facility, the Baxter Hood Center, and we rented it out to lots of folks for corporate training and corporate events. And it's amazing, all the different things that can go wrong. And you try to mitigate risk and have insurance and other things, but sometimes you just you find yourself in a very bad place and you get some very bad PR, and you discover whatever it was you were doing that you thought was really helping somebody in the community winds up giving you a black eye. Ultimately, I'd sum it up this way: no good deed goes unpunished. And that's what a lot of these folks are responding to. And unfortunately, ham radio is a little worse off for it. So we're having trouble finding venues.
I'm curious, talking about this and, trying to find bigger venues like White Cars. I wonder how many clubs actually grew attendance during the pandemic, or if they had a loss. I know of one that actually grew attendance, and I don't know how the hell they did it, but they did it. It's pretty remarkable, I think. I don't really know.
We held kind of steady in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I know that the local club here, Y-Cars, had really pulled all the stops out to attract new members, and they had some growth during the pandemic, some significant growth. They really.
Hey, Brad, I can offer a perspective on that. And you don't have to be an ARRL member to get this information. This information is on the main splash page of ARRL without having to log in as a member. And that is if you go to the hyperlink for clubs, you can actually create a spreadsheet from there. One of the fields are the number of members. Now, that information is dependent upon what information is submitted by the club to the ARRL database. And as Mark may well know, and as any good section affiliate club coordinator will know, clubs are supposed to update their information at least once a year. And I encourage clubs to do that update after they have elections of new officers. But some clubs do run behind in the information that they upload. But as far as year-to-year numbers, I have some good news in the offing, and that is after about, I hate to say, a decade of really not attention to clubs, there's now a person at headquarters, Mike Walters, W8ZY, Whiskey 8, Zulu Yankee, who is in charge of clubs. And some of you may have seen the inaugural or really revitalized club newsletter that was sent out to members in the last month. And Mike will begin to compile some of that information so that you can see the changes in trends in club size.
So we go right here to the radio clubs. Is that first link? We go to
let me see. I think so. My screen is very tiny right now, Brad. But yes, you go to radio clubs there.
Okay.
Click on there.
It's going to open in a new window, which kind of throws us off a little bit. But
and then in that window, the new window that is there, at the bottom, it says, would you like to download data? And one of the options is as a spreadsheet. CVS, CSV, CSV, or Commons Unlimited, and you can slice and dice and do all sorts of information.
Oh, did I go back here? No. All right. Well, at least we know where to go, so that's good.
As an observation, what I noticed during the pandemic, the clubs that either maintained their membership or grew it were clubs that had developed a lot of different techniques for reaching members. It wasn't just a matter of saying, okay, we're not going to have any meetings till the pandemic is over. And the clubs that grew really made sure they engaged members. They had virtual meetings. They had other kinds of things they did. In fact, John is going to tell us what he did. I'm seeing it come across the screen right now. So I'll just shut up and let him tell it. He knows it better than anybody. You can see some of the comments there. But if you think about what the common thread is, it's really all about engagement, staying engaged with your membership. And that not only...
I know I heard that they did some things where they even delivered, I think, packages and things to some of their members. And so there's a lot of outreach that I think went on that really helped that.
And I've heard of several clubs in the Roanoke division who inaugurated daytime health and welfare nets to check on members. And by example, the Williamsburg, Virginia club has a daytime health and welfare net that has been meeting every day continuously since March of 2020. And their club size has grown dramatically.
Wow. Very cool.
Well, John, thanks for those additional comments. Those are right on target. Hopefully clubs will be able to take advantage of some of that. I think having virtual meetings was a big one. Oh, Philip brought up something important that I myself used to go to more regularly than I do. I haven't been there probably in a year or so, but the local club has a lunch get together every Thursday, and they move it from restaurant to restaurant. And it's not like we have a ton of good restaurants in Rock Hill, but we have a few. They move it around. It makes it possible for people to attend. And Brad, I just heard that for whom the bell tolls. Does that mean our hour is up?
Well, I don't have an alarm set. I'm gonna guess where that's coming from.
Is that Gordon?
And
I'm in the
Um,
office where the Vienna regulator clock was donated by my wife's late uncle to us as a wedding gift.
Okay.
So I
Well, that's
apologize
cool.
for the tone.
No, it was timely because it means our hour is up.
I love it. Bill's just standing there going, "Oh God, I just got to smile my way through this."
No, not at all.
Anyway,
I
John,
enjoy-
It's a little diversion. That's good. It's good stuff.
John's also highlighted some of the other things the club's been doing. And one of the things, again, it goes back to engagement. When you have this kind of outreach, food drives, health and welfare net, again, it's a way to get your members engaged. Good evening, Linda. Thanks for the comment. Somebody I haven't connected with recently. Yeah, having another modality for meetings, going virtual can help.
Yeah.
I worked remotely for the last year I was in the workforce, and at first I wondered how it was going to work, but after a couple of months, I got the hang of it and it worked pretty well. Again, it's a way to keep people engaged. And there, Bill Turner's given an example of a way that people can stay engaged using Zoom for meetings. And the interesting thing is, in the pandemic, folks don't always have other things to do, but they can get on the radio. It's something you can do from home, and so there's an opportunity to engage people and kind of bring them back into the hobby if they haven't been in a while.
Well, another thing I like about the virtual meetings is sometimes you just can't make it, but you could probably get in on a Zoom call or something of that sort and be able to participate.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Brad. I mean, I can't drive, so it's been a whole lot easier for me to do outreach and be a part of meetings that otherwise I really wouldn't have been able to physically make it to. So
yeah. Well, and like we said earlier, once we start doing this, you can't take this away. You're just gonna you can't turn it off. You got to continue to do it, don't you? I mean, I guess you could stop, but I think that's going to upset the apple cart.
The Grandstand Amateur Radio Club's trying to stop it.
Well,
now that we've gone back to in-person meetings, they've cut out Zoom, and I think it's a mistake. But I'm not PIO anymore, so.
All right,
I think a hybrid approach is the way to go.
We got somebody else in that's going to pop in. You guys want to say hey? Just hang on 1 second. Oh no, where'd he go? We can't see him.
Hey, everyone.
There he is.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Hello, Jim.
How's everything? Look at this. This is the whole team.
Something.
There's a question that just popped up from Chuck Miller. Any information on Gray Line Performance Antenna's current status? I'm not sure, other than to say there were some pretty negative reviews of Gray Line's antennas, and I don't know exactly what's gonna happen with them. I haven't. It's interesting. You're one of the first people that's asked me about Gray Line Performance antennas, so not quite sure what's happening with them, except that I suspect that the antenna, they might have oversold the performance, and the market is beginning to figure that out. And what will happen to them long term, it's probably going to depend on how they respond to that. But they've had problems shipping. People have some some comments. You look on the internet, you see things like appalling service, complaints to the Better Business Bureau. So I imagine that they have some work ahead of them, and that's about all I can tell you. That may not be the answer you were looking for. It may not be enough of an answer, but unfortunately, that's about all I know right now. Good evening, Jim. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Mark. Thanks very much. And thanks to Brad for putting this together.
Okay,
Sorry
and
about
another
the mess
comment.
back here, but this is, I've just
It's
got
good
stuff
mess.
all over
It's
the
good
place.
mess. My favorite part's the fire extinguisher up there behind
Exactly.
you.
And happy to say I've never had to use it.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Mike's not
very
over.
good.
So good.
Got another comment coming across the bottom of the screen from Bogan. Wished we would hold these more often. I can tell you our plan is we're going to start out and we're going to do it quarterly. We don't want to bore people to death. We just want to bore them until maybe they're close to unconscious. So we'll try doing it quarterly, and if it catches on and we need to do it more often, I think all of us are willing to do that. But I appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much.
I think we've had a good turnout. We've had some good questions. We've had a good panel. So, and then Jim finally decided to join us,
Okay.
Well, Jim, unlike the
tell
rest
you.
of us, has a life.
This is December, and musicians all have a whole lot of commitments, but I'm glad I could be part of this.
Well, we had some good questions. The Parity Act came up, and we got some good insight on that from Bill. Questions about clubs and engagement, and good comments too. Some folks just chimed in with comments. We had Billy did a good job. Roger Mull was with us for a couple of minutes, and he had some questions about Aries, and Billy took those. I had the feed from the Swamp Fox contest group going in the background, and some of those guys didn't find it too interesting. I was watching the chatter back and forth. So we have some work to do yet. It's not riveting, but I don't think we killed anybody with it. We might have just put a couple of people to sleep. But now that you're here, maybe you can liven it up. So we haven't done it yet.
One of the things is it's going to take me a while to get back up to speed. It's been 3 years, and Bill is the star. He's been in the middle of this the entire time. And Margie, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. But Bill has kind of towed the line. I've already said that on his he is the chair of the investment management group, and I cannot remember the right name of this, but he's risen the level of vice director to a higher level than any vice director has done in the history of the ARRL, and congratulations to him for that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the end of the day, even at a nonprofit, finance is important. And I'm Bill. I'm glad you're the guy that's helped steering that ship. I really am.
Thank you, Mark. I want to compliment Gordon, Brad, and Mark all for their prowess with their beards, especially at December here. It looks like they all have department store gigs on the side in the month of December.
I didn't have time to curl it up, or I would have, maybe for the next one.
Well, once I get back home, we're going back to Rock Hill on December 11th. I'll get it trimmed again. It's starting to get a little out of control.
No, tis the season, Mark. Let it go for a while.
We could hang some little mini ornaments or some stuff in there. It'd be fun.
You guys, this is a tough crowd, man. I tell you what.
If I could figure out how to get LEDs in mine, I'd do it.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Lowe's has a nice battery operated set.
Yeah, that's true. I've got some of those that I use in the house for some of the Christmas decorations. You just hide.
Oh,
the
you got to
battery,
go solar.
There you go. Oh, I could go solar right here, man.
Mark can take care of that skull that he's got.
Keep the sun off my skull. Anyway, I guess we're into the after event now. The hour is up, and
what we'll have to do when we do this the next time, we'll have the formal thing. And then once if we go over an hour, then we can start opening beverages and just see what happens. And if the
Yeah.
numbers go up, maybe we start off that way for the next one.
Mine's kind of boring.
I,
What can I tell you?
I
I'm
do
saving
have
the rest for
one
later.
comment.
Gordon, I haven't seen you in I don't know how long. Good to see you.
It's been
seen
Tuesday.
Well, I tell you what, guys, why don't we do this? Why don't we wrap this up? Everybody hang out. Don't go anywhere. And we can talk about some stuff. Let's get offline. Let people get back to their lives. And
Okay,
we greatly
sounds good.
appreciate everybody hanging out with us. So, Mark, you want to take us home?
Yeah.
May I make one quick comment?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Gordon, the floor is yours.
Okay, field day this year. I visited the Rock Hill Club. I have never felt so welcome at any other field day event. I really haven't. And I think that has a lot to do with why the Rock Hill Club is growing members, because they make everyone feel so welcome.
They're a nice bunch of people. I'm not saying that just because they're down the street from me. They're actually, it's a club I've been a member of for a long time, probably 30 plus years. They're a great group of people. And one of the things they really are committed to is membership engagement. They're somewhat unusual among clubs in South Carolina. They have their own building and land. They got a couple of towers on it. And in addition to club meetings, they have this Thursday luncheon, but they also have these on the air nights where folks maybe who live in a HOA restricted neighborhood or for whatever reason can or don't get on the air, they can drive over to Y-Cars. And I mean, they've got, a TH6, a 40-meter tri-bander.
They got
some other
remote
lights.
access now, too. They got
They have
remote
what?
access because they got a flex. So you can
Yep, they
remote
got a
operate.
flex now, so they can even run remote. So it's an opportunity for members who might not otherwise get on the air to get on the air. I think that's great. Again, it's part of the outreach and engagement. And when you do that, hams talk to other hams about the experiences they're having. So there's this additional impact. Essentially, by engaging your members and making them excited about what you do, they help you market membership to other prospective members, because they're the folks who are going to talk about it and say, man, you are not going to believe what we did. We did this really cool thing, or they did this great stuff for field day. Yeah, Y-Cars, they take field day pretty seriously for something that's part of a hobby. They really do. They do a great job with it. Brad and I were over there this June. It was the only field day site I visited.
And it was a huge setup. It was dark. I mean, it was pitch dark, but I mean, it was a huge setup, was it not?
It was. They had antennas everywhere. I was amazed.
And they were spaced out. That park they got is
Westminster Park's a real nice venue.
It's not Lake Robinson, but it's everywhere just as good. There's just I guess they do have the lake.
They do.
Lake Wiley's right over there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right. It's not Lake Robinson. It's Lake Wiley.
That's right. It is.
Anyway, let me tie a ribbon on this. I certainly want anyone that we haven't bored to death yet who's still on the live stream. Thanks very much for participating with us this evening. We couldn't have done, quite frankly, we could not have done this without you. So hopefully we'll attract some more folks next time. Our plan is to do this quarterly. So we'll see you again in February. All right. This is early December, and 3 months from now will be January, end of February, early March. And we'll do a better job of promoting it and advertising it this time. And be sure to come armed with questions and comments. The good news is all the folks you see on the screen have thick skins and a sense of humor. So we look forward to any and all comments. Thanks very much, folks, for being part of this evening. And with that, Brad, I'm going to let you pull the plug on it.
All right, you guys stick around here that are in the deal here. Appreciate you guys showing up, everybody online in the comments. It was great. Look forward to doing it again. We will see you next time.